I was just talking about that on the phone outside. I was doing a different interview and oops, sorry.
Now she will be booked.
Cheated on you. I was like talking about...
That was funny.
Hi, I'm Gigi Gorgeous, and we're with Attitude Magazine talking through some of the gender queries we tackle in our new book, The Tea Guide.
I mean, I remember growing up, like literally in the schoolyard at recess, I would get called the F word, I'd get called queer, and it was such a triggering thing for me for so long. And then when everyone, like, you know, within the past like 5-6 years was like, I'm queer, I was like, oh my God, wait, what?
Right.
So I think it's like taking the power back. And I think that that's what we're doing with this book.
Yeah, no, I love that too. And I think, I mean, even me personally with like my sexuality or gender, I don't like specifically, I'm like, I'm queer ever, but I'm not offended by it because if that makes someone else happy, it's not an offensive term. It's not hurting anyone. It's actually being reclaimed and celebrated. So, you know, if you don't want to use it, all power to you and vice versa.
Exactly.
I mean, Gigi and I are both people who chose to medically transition, and it's a really big part of our personal journey. I know me personally, I just really like, before I even knew the language for transgender, I was like, I knew I needed top surgery. It was like my whole life, I just felt that. And so I think personally it was just so important. And I think in the book we really drive it hard though. Like I have so many friends and amazing people in my life that do not want surgery or to touch hormones or medically transition at all. And that is just as valid and just as amazing and powerful. And just because that was my journey or your journey does not make it someone else's journey. So everyone's transition is so different, and that is what we're trying to get across in this book.
Yes. And I feel like him and I are very on the binary, you know, like you and I are very like male, female, like we just like love that. There's so many people in the mix. And I feel like for the surgical aspect, you can get caught up in it. Like you can be like, oh my God, like I need this done. This is so validating. And a lot of it is, you know, a lot of it is so validating, and you like see yourself in the mirror and you're like, oh my God, I have boobs. Like, for example, I'm like, oh my God, like my third boob job. I'm like, yeah, like love it. Couldn't get enough. But at the same time, it's like, for example, I'm right now going off hormones for my husband and I's fertility journey. And it's like things like that I'm like, okay, well, it's not all about the vanity aspect. It's about like your life aspect.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, surgery can be it could just feel very vain sometimes and like, you know, like vapid and weird. But for us, we like validate it in other ways. It's just what we needed.
Yeah, no, I definitely needed it. And I think everyone's like a trans journey is never over, which we talk about a lot in this book. And there'll be some days where I'm like, or a huge part of my life, actually, I thought I needed bottom surgery to be so validated. And then I kind of stepped back and was like, who am I doing that for? You know, is that actually for me? So I think it's so important also that if surgery is a part of your transitional journey, that you step back and make sure you're doing everything for yourself. And it's because you need it, and not because it's what society is telling you that you're supposed to do to transition or be a girl or be a guy, you know? It's for you to be happy.
Mm-hmm. I think transphobia is so real. Even people who don't know they're transphobic, like, are definitely transphobic.
Yes, I was just talking about that on the phone outside. I was doing a different interview and oops, sorry.
Now she will be booked.
Cheated on you. I was like talking about...
That was funny.
There was this time where I was in, I don't even know, Miami or something, and this person was just like speaking normally to me. It wasn't like hate crime. It wasn't like, you nasty, like T-word. It wasn't anything crazy. They were actually having a genuine discussion, and the things they were saying were just so triggering and so transphobic. I was just like listening. I was like, this is what people think of me. I was like, oh my God. And it really got to me, and I had like a full breakdown in Miami, I think it was, and I was just like, oh my God, that's insane. And then I had to just again step back and realize, I'm like, who cares what literally anyone thinks? Just because they're not educated about a subject, like you could feel that they didn't really have like ill will against me. Like there wasn't like a malicious intent. It was just not educated. I was just very ballsy with the terms and I was gagging. And so I just needed to step back and realize that I need to come from a place of like love and acceptance and education sometimes, and not just crawl into a ball and be like, poor me, oh my God, like, because it's hard.
Yeah, I feel like people are so like inherently ignorant. Like they just don't know until they meet. Like I've been in so many situations where like I've met, you know, even like literally like with you, people are be like, oh my God, you guys are like trans, you guys are so fun, or like you guys are so like inspiring, or like you guys are so, you know, quote unquote normal. Like I never would have thought. And I feel like people are just inherently transphobic because they just think that it's like weird or not normal or like freaky or whatever. And it's like, we're just trying to be people too. And that's exactly why I feel like we did this book, because we just want to prove that our stories are valid and like we are people and like hear us, see us, but it's like not a threat to you whatsoever, my love. Like
Literally.
you are fine.
Yes. I actually saw online that I think it was Bob the drag queen or something was like hosting a full debate about if people like being called cisgender or not.
Okay.
And
As to me.
I know, and people were like fully like, I'm not cisgender, I'm just
But like cisgender people say.
yes. And I was just like, it just means you're not trans.
Right.
Sure. So it's like, what are you, trans?
Like, are people finding like heterosexual too?
Well, I think a lot of people are like, I don't like labels. But I'm like, girl, I hate when people say that, because it's like, yes, you do. You're like pretty like if you're like, I love being an American, that's a label, but like I love if I love being you're a doctor. I'm like, that's a label. You are just playing games to be rude and homophobic. Yeah, no, it's so weird. I was actually just watching Sex and the City.
Me too.
Really?
The movie?
I was watching like the whole thing. I watched it from episode 1 all the way through. I had a lot of time on my hands. And I watched all that, and then I watched the new seasons and Just Like That, I think it's called. And it's like the newer Sex and the City. And Charlotte's kid changed their name at school without telling them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so in the school, like all the moms in the school just started calling them a different name before the parents like knew. And I was like, whoa, I never like saw that side of it. Because obviously if you're asking me right now, I'd be like, oh my God, what are you talking about? Like, of course, like let kids change their names and express themselves and everything. And I am definitely that's my stance, but it is kind of like sometimes I have to step back and be like with when I came out, my parents had a really hard time with it. And instead of being like stepping back and being like, okay, what's their side of this? It's a transition for everyone. They don't know what this is or how to deal with this. I just kind of was like, get into it or get lost. There's no education now or never. So I think that, and just like that, it kind of made me step back and realize like there is another perspective.
We had very similar beginning of transitions with our parents. I mean, my mom passed away when I was 19. Right after that, I transitioned. But with my dad, it was such an uphill battle because I was like, I am going to do this and I'm going to either, you know, you're going to be in my life or you're not.
Yeah.
And it really took years for me to learn that it is a transition for everyone and we're never done transitioning. And I think it's such a testament to why we like wrote this book, because this is the education that I feel like we honestly would have been like, our heads would have been in this book.
Yes.
Like as kids.
Yes.
Like it would have been very like, oh my God, this is like my favorite photo. Oh my God, this is my favorite chapter. This is like what stuck with me. We've sent this book to our friends and they've texted us back with like their favorite parts. And I'm like, that was your favorite part? Like of all of it?
I know. I feel like I would have slipped it to my parents too and been like, or like planted or something. I don't even know. Because I'd have been like, read up.
Bought 2 copies and left one in the living room.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, how'd they get there?
100% like found a way to get my parents to pick it up, because it is just such an amazing literally guide, and it leaves so much room for like to keep growing after reading the guide and make it pertain to your specific situation, which I love, and I'm so excited to release it. And yeah, basically let kids transition in schools. So
that too.